Cold cases are periodically solved, sometimes via the use of forensic evidence, sometimes simply by following up on previous leads. From a headless woman with an unidentifiable torso to an unknown young man's body from 1979, all of the instances on this list have been solved decades later in 2023. Many ongoing cases were finally resolved when new technology made new evidence available. Although this does not fully compensate the victims, their families will be able to rest easier knowing who snatched their loved ones from them. In today's video, we'll look at 5 such decades-old cold cases that were solved in 2023. Without further ado, let's walk onto the edge of the unknown. Philip Kahn didn't tell anyone where he was going in July 2000 when he walked out of his Las Vegas home, hitched a ride to the airport, and boarded a flight. Just like that, the retired 84-year-old cab driver was gone without a trace. For nearly 23 years, his family wondered what happened to the friendly man who enjoyed dancing with his wife and 2-for-1 meals at the casinos. They came to terms with the likelihood that he wasn't coming back. Years later, when he would have been approaching 100, they accepted he had probably died. What they didn't know was that within a month of his disappearance, and 3,000 miles away, a body was pulled from the Atlantic Ocean, 27 miles off the coast of Maine. These 2 dots were finally connected this month when the Maine office of the Chief Medical Examiner and FBI identified the remains as Kahn's. The remains were found near Grand Manan Banks on July 24, 2000. Fingerprints and DNA samples were taken, but no leads were found. In 2019, investigators analyzed a DNA sample and learned that the man was Ashkenazi Jewish, but still didn't know who he was. The OCME performed an autopsy and collected DNA and fingerprints after the remains were discovered in 2000. The FBI received the fingerprints, but no matches were found. The FBI's combined DNA index received the DNA sample, however there was no match. The Parabon Nanolabs was then hired in 2019 to study the DNA and try forensic genealogy, but neither endeavor yielded any promising clues. However, the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services, Deceased Persons Identification Services Division, and the OCME convened in March 2022 to discuss new technology made available by the FBI. The FBI matched the unidentified person's fingerprints and dental records to Mr. Kahn. The identification has been communicated to Mr. Kahn's next of kin.
Investigators identified the baby because of advancements in DNA technology.
And that DNA evidence is now going to be a critical part of this case over a decade after the child's skeletal remains were found in the yard of an Alabama trailer home.
The remains of a young girl were found in a wooded area behind an Opelika, Alabama trailer in late January 2012. Her body was badly decomposed, and no one knew who she was or how she got there. Over the years, investigators were able to get these sketches made of what they believed the little girl looked like, and as a way to test DNA evidence became more advanced, they were able to start putting the pieces of this very sad puzzle back together. 10 years later, some major strides were made in the case. Investigators finally knew the girl's name and made an arrest. Amore Wiggins was born in Norfolk on January 1, 2006. Her mother, Sherry Wiggins, says Amore was a happy baby. Sherry lost custody of her when she was young, but says she never stopped thinking about her and even paid child support up until late 2022 when she found out Amore was gone. Amore's father, Lamar Vickerstaff, was in the Navy, and Sherry thought Amore would have a better life with her father and his wife, Ruth.
A man of honor, and with a job like that, things did look better for him.
Police believe Amore was severely abused and neglected before her murder. Forensics also revealed her left eye was scarred and blind. Lamar and Ruth are now facing charges for her death.
Chris, the Opelika Jane Doe case has been top of mind for investigators for 10 years now, and they recently charged Amore's father, Lamar Vickerstaff, and his wife, Ruth, with her death. Tonight, we're learning more about Amore, who her mom says she named for love.
He called me and he was like, "I don't want to tell you this." He said, "But it's definitely Amore."
On June 28, 2004, A maintenance worker was working at a rest area along Interstate 70, westbound, at Wright City, Missouri. The worker had been trimming brush along the edge of the common area when he discovered a woman's torso. She had no head, hands, or legs. The torso was still wearing a black bra, but no other clothing. 2 scars on the torso were determined to be from a surgery. The medical examiner determined that she had been dead for several hours, but due to the condition of the remains, could not provide a definitive cause of death. The torso was found at the bottom of a small incline near a drainage ditch. A picnic table was nearby. A knife was located in a sewer drain in the same area. Investigators found no other body parts. On October 24, 2004, Roger Mozzie, Warren County, Missouri coroner, arranged for the burial of the unidentified remains with a simple pole post-styled marker. Family held the memorial service at the Pittman Funeral Home in Warrenton. Despite an exhaustive search by investigators, they could identify no further clues regarding the remains. The case grew cold. Lieutenant Matt Schmutz, with the Warren County, Missouri Sheriff's Department, renewed the investigation in 2014.
By releasing certain information today, it will generate more leads into the ongoing investigation.
Tuesday afternoon, the Major Case Squad announced they're reopening a case that's gone unsolved for 12 years.
Hopefully we can put a successful conclusion to what is a very brutal murder.
He carefully combed the missing persons reports, hoping to find a connection to the remains they had discovered in 2004. It wasn't until 2016 that investigators would receive a break in the victim's case. In 2016, Brian Barker, a former police officer of Edwardsville, Illinois, was being investigated for several crimes between 2014 and 2015. While being questioned by the Madison County, Illinois Sheriff's Department, Barker stated he had a sister who had been reported as a missing person several years prior. He stated his sister was an alleged sex worker who had an addiction problem and that she led a very transient lifestyle. This information was made a matter of record, which caused the sheriff's departments from Madison County, Illinois, and Warren County, Missouri, to converse regarding the possibility of victim identification. The Missouri State Highway Patrol Lab performed DNA comparison with Brian Barker. They positively identified the victim as Deanna Denise Howland on March 22, 2016.
Torso has remained unidentified until March of 2016, when new evidence revealed the identity of the torso as Deanna Denise Howland.
Howland was reported to be a resident of Alton, Illinois, which is located approximately 55 miles east of where her remains were discovered. Investigators also learned she had been a mother of 4 children, but had relinquished them because of her personal struggles. It would take a few more years before forensics could complete any additional analysis. Further DNA analysis was performed on DNA evidence that was discovered on the torso and the knife that had been discovered in the rest area. Those results identified Mike Anthony Clardy. He had been living in St. Anne, a northwest suburb of St. Louis, Missouri, at the time of Howland's death. Police arrested Mike Clardy in Maryland Heights, Missouri on January 10, 2023. Prosecutors have formally charged him with second-degree murder and abandonment of a corpse relating to the death of Deanna Howland. He allegedly confessed to murdering and dismembering Howland before scattering her remains around Madison County, Illinois, and Warren County, Missouri. Clardy stated he had murdered Howland at his home in the 3500 block of Dixie Street in St. Anne, Missouri on June 26, 2004, over a disagreement. He further explained that he dismembered her at his home before scattering her body parts around the greater St. Louis area and ultimately leaving her torso in the rest area at Wright City, Missouri. Mike Clardy faces a 40-year prison sentence if a jury finds him guilty. This case is an open and active investigation. There is no trial date set. It was the first day above freezing in a week in the winter of 1979 when a duck hunter discovered the remains entangled in a fishing line. A shoe, a leg bone, and a tan pair of pants were all together in the Snohomish River Delta by a 12-foot wooden piling. Near a fallen cedar, the hunter saw a red checkered shirt, then the skull, ribs, and another black leather shoe with a foot inside. The remains were examined by the Snohomish County coroner, but manner and cause of death could not be determined. Although the specific details of that early examination have not survived, it couldn't be determined if he died locally or if his remains had been washed down the river or even from the opposite direction. One investigator suggested they could have come from as far away as Alaska and been washed in with the tide. The remains were eventually interred at Cypress Lawn Cemetery in Everett, Washington. It seems that we don't know what steps were taken at the time to try to identify him, since the records are largely missing. We do know that he suffered a fractured femur at one point that had healed very badly and would have given him a pronounced limp. The damage is so severe that one recent investigator wondered if that pointed to him not being homeless, as a homeless person could have had such a severe injury treated for free. In 2015, the remains were exhumed from the cemetery and given to the county medical examiner. A forensic odontologist took dental radiographs and uploaded them to the National Crime Information Center database to see if the records would match any missing persons, but no matches turned up. The case was added to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, a federal database. By 2016, the remains were also looked at Washington State forensic anthropologist at the King County Medical Examiner's office. The doctor released some information about the remains, including that they were believed to belong to a white man who was between 27 and 61 years old and estimated to be between 5 feet 2 inches and 5 feet 6 inches tall. In 2018, the right femur was extracted for DNA and added to the FBI's Combined DNA Index System, officials said, but a match wasn't made in that system either. Then in 2021, an advanced DNA profile was taken by Othram, a private lab. A DNA profile was created using forensic-grade genome sequencing and then added to genealogical databases. It got several matches through GED Match and Family Tree DNA, officials said. One of the top matches included Haney, who had been missing from Everett since the late 1970s, though the circumstances of his disappearance are not known.
A 1979 mystery in Snohomish County has now been solved thanks to DNA testing. A duck hunter found human remains entangled in a fishing line on the tide flats near Spencer Island, south of Marysville. The Snohomish County Medical Examiner's Office says he's now been identified as Gary Lee Haney of Everett. In 1979, the Snohomish County Coroner's Office listed him as a John Doe, and they couldn't figure out how he died. Despite the efforts of cold case detectives, the person's identity remained a mystery for decades. That is, until Othram Incorporated ran DNA tests and confirmed it was Gary.
DNA testing of his half-sister led investigators to confirm the remains belonged to Haney. A medical examiner officially identified the remains February 10, 2023. Haney was from Topeka, Kansas. He liked to play piano and listen to the Beatles. He also had traveled the world with his mother and adoptive father, officials said. The Herald states that Social Security records reflect Haney as having died on Christmas Eve 1976, but no one who is still alive today can identify the person who submitted the death claim for Haney. More than a decade after 31-year-old Todd Lampley was fatally shot in a Massachusetts home, authorities have arrested and charged a suspect who was identified with the help of DNA found on a sweet potato found at the scene, court records show.
New details now. A cold case from more than 12 years ago in Massachusetts may finally be solved. And the smoking gun was a sweet potato.
DeVaris Hampton, 40, pleaded not guilty Monday to charges of murder and assault with a dangerous weapon, Barnstable District Court records show. It was exactly 12 years after the February 27, 2011, killing in the village of Hyannis. On the night of Lampley's death, investigators found shell casings and a sweet potato on the ground outside the window of the bedroom where he was shot. An arrest affidavit from the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office states, the potato was cut flat on one end, appeared to have a hole carved through its center, and was blown out and irregular on one end, according to the affidavit. Though it would be years until investigators could connect Hampton to DNA on the sweet potato, they uncovered several other pieces of evidence the affidavit lays out. Phone records reviewed by investigators showed Hampton had exchanged more than a dozen calls and texts with a man who was in the house with Lampley at the time of the killing, including in the minutes before and after the shooting, the affidavit said. Hampton was also wearing a GPS monitoring bracelet at the time of the killing as part of his probation in an unrelated case, the affidavit said. Location records from the bracelet showed Hampton was around the house at the time of the shooting, it said. A few days after the shooting, Hampton was arrested in an unrelated case and refused to speak to investigators when asked about the Lampley case, the affidavit said. In 2016, authorities got a DNA sample from Hampton without his knowledge by collecting some of his phlegm that he spit into a puddle, according to the affidavit. An outside lab found a very high probability the DNA profiles from the swab of the sweet potato and Hampton's spit matched.
Navarius Hampton was charged yesterday in connection with the murder of 31-year-old Todd Lampley. Lampley was found shot to death in Cape Cod. The shooting occurred 12 years ago, with police pulling Hampton's DNA off of a sweet potato which he used as a silencer. According to prosecutors, Hampton was wearing a tracking device due to a previous crime. The device placed Hampton at the home at the time of the murder.
Hampton is being held without bail and is scheduled to return to court for a probable cause hearing on April 5th. What are your views on this video? Do you think these cases could have had a different approach and there could have been a better investigation to get them solved any sooner? Let us know your views in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked our efforts in the research of this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss out on our content. Catch you in the next video.